Hello and welcome to the PocketGamer.biz podcast week in mobile games, where we discuss the week's news and provide some insights and analysis. I'm Craig Chapple, head of content at PocketGamer.biz, and with me today is Aaron Astle, our news editor. And
Hello.
for the first time, we're actually doing the video podcast, which I may edit into audio later. But as you can see, the backgrounds that we have are two very different worlds. I look like it's like just like an airing cupboard or something behind me. I'm in like a spare room. Whereas Aaron actually has proper background. It has really cool figures. We're just talking about some of the Pokemon you've got on there.
Yes, yeah. My hair's kind of blocking it, but for our visual listeners, this is my cool Zorro art figure with a little Zorro on the side.
That is really cool.
So he's hanging out in the background, listening in on the podcast. And then for our recurring listeners, this is the Beast Titan I mentioned last week before maybe. And then a bunch of other stuff, load of CDs because I actually collect physical media. Yeah,
Fighting the system.
Yeah, one disc at a time.
I don't want to borrow your stuff. I actually want to own it. I've got you. No one can see them because I have a rubbish background. I have loads of figures on my desk. I say loads. I have a few. I recently bought a Gengar because I'm sad, but he's very cool, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
Kind of goes with all the other ones I've got. I'll just show a quick view. I've got like a Charmander. It's very cool. Bulbasaur, one of my faves, is on here. My star figure is, as I always can't go a single podcast without mentioning Godzilla. I have the cutest little Godzilla. I love that.
Yeah, that's
from,
really cool.
What's it called? Godzilla versus Kong. That one's from. He's just a sleepy boy. But yeah, so that's the Now we're on visuals. And every week we can show off our latest figures. That's our whole start. I ordered, because I'm a massive nerd. I ordered some StarCraft 2 figures as well from U2s, which I've just discovered. I wish I'd never discovered it. They're amazing. Somehow, years after I moved out from there, I've accidentally sent them to my old flat. So I had to get in touch with the landlord. Like, by the way, you might just get these random figures. They're mine. I'll have to come get. Yeah, that was slightly embarrassing. So, I guess that's enough of all that. I guess we'll jump straight into it. But firstly, we'll do some, promotions for the things we're doing. So, obviously, I'm sure everyone that's looked at the PocketGamer.biz website this week will not forget that the Pocket Gamer Connects Helsinki is taking place next week, October 1st and 2nd. That's actually part of Finnish Games Week, so there'll be Leadership Day with IGDA Finland and W Love Games at the end of the week as well. So there's a full packed schedule. There's plenty of other things going on. We have our networking party. There's still time to register, of course. So if you're interested in coming, most people, I think, register probably like the last week because we all like to do things last minute. We're really looking forward to that. That's kind of taken over my week here for sure. Preparing for that, I'm going to be hosting some cool panels. I'm really looking forward to a fireside chat with Rovio about a certain Sega acquisition. So definitely check that out. That'll be really fun. And then later in the year, we've got Pocket Gamer Connects Jordan, November 9th and 10th. Links in the description below. Oh, and don't forget, I nearly did. Top 50, we will be announcing that at Helsinki on October 2nd. So if you want to be in the room and you want to meet some of the representatives of those companies that will be included, then definitely join us there. We'll publish that on the site later. Who made it? But good luck to everyone. We may or may not already know who's in it, but after many months working on that. And then lastly, Mobile Trend Survey still out, about a week to go. So please do fill that in. Let us know about all the latest trends. Really helps us to kind of help you. We'll release a report about what developers think, what they're going through, and get a snapshot of the industry as it stands right now. So that's all the shilling over and done with. We're going to jump into the news. And in my notes, as I do, I started writing like just some quick things that I could look at, and then I wrote like 1,000 bullet points about it. So I feel like we have to start with Ubisoft. And the headline we've got, which is one of the headlines from this week about Ubisoft, really. Ubisoft shares plunged 20% after Assassin's Creed Shadows delay. So where do I even begin? it it's not been a good week for Ubisoft. So they released a statement that said a number of things. So Star Wars Outlaws, their big kind of RPG, had a softer than expected launch. So poor sales is what that means. They said it had a solid rating of 76 on Metacritic. Now, kind of like, are you kidding me? A solid rating of 76. But, there has been long been a debate, probably settled, that Metacritic is not really the best way necessarily to really judge a game. It's a pretty harsh metric, potentially. But in an industry where largely there's kind of the running joke in media is run at a scale of you can only start at 7 to 10. And then that's it. There's no other number that you can get. Obviously, that's not true, but kind of generally, maybe. And so 76 under that is not great, especially if it's one of your big games of the year. And I know there was a few problems, and part of the thing that they say here is Ubisoft development teams are fully mobilized to implement changes and polish. So I haven't actually played it, so I can't really talk about how good or bad it is from my perspective. But what I have heard from other people that have done it is that they say it's just really the first hours. So I think someone said even the first 10 hours is the problem. And there's like some 4 stealth sections where you just kind of, it's like insta fail. You have to start all over again. Like everyone hates those kinds of missions. So I'm surprised they made it into the game. But then actually later the game opens up in it and it's fantastic. So it does sound like this, this is a harsh way to put it, but salvageable from there. But obviously you want it good at launch because that's when you're going to make a lot of the sales. So yeah, they're fully mobilized on that. But then, as mentioned, the big news is Assassin's Creed Shadows has been delayed. So it was going to launch in November, and now it's been delayed to February 14th, 2025. Apparently it's feature complete, but they want to polish it, take the learnings from Star Wars Outlaws. I wonder what that means. Is it for stealth sections? Probably not, but interesting. I think it's good to delay a game to make it better. Years ago they had, I'm sure everyone remembers, Assassin's Creed Unity. I think they bought the game to a new engine, released it, and it just wasn't in a fit state to run on everyone's kind of different devices. And so, they had all the articles were basically just like faces without a face, just the eyes popping out or something. And they definitely don't want that again. And yeah, I think it's Miyamoto or Iwata. I think it's Miyamoto's quote, famously, better to delay. Because that everyone will remember a bad game, but they won't remember the delay. But it just kind of compounds with all the negativity, I think, surrounding Ubisoft lately. That, now they've delayed this. And they've had, over the past couple years, kind of some poor performing games. Not everything, but some poor performing games. And then obviously you got that activist investor that wants to just shake up the entire company. So it's just a bad time. And then if you slip into next year, that's when Ghost of Yotai comes out. I think there's room for both, to be honest. But yeah, people have on social media been making that kind of point and that joke, that bad time to release a game when because Ghost of Tsushima really well loved, kind of the same sort of setting. So we'll see how that does. A couple more quick things. Interesting, they said they're going to depart from the traditional season pass model, and then because of the delay, players who pre-order will get the first expansion free. I'm quite surprised they would do that. It's a delay.
Pretty good.
It's great for players. From a consumer perspective, well done, Ubisoft. But it feels like they've really taken it to heart that they've delayed this game because
and it's only a couple of months, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like fans would forgive. Maybe I'm absolutely wrong, but
so I think with my kind of Nintendo skew, as that's what I mainly play, it's fairly common that they'll delay games. So I think it's a kind of encouraging sign for Assassin's Creed that they are delaying it a bit, because it means they do actually want it to turn out
Hmm.
kind of as good as it can be. And like often Nintendo games that have been delayed do end up selling really well when they come out. And they've delayed stuff and kind of missed the holiday period before as well. Like Animal Crossing had that. And obviously, it released at a really good time because the pandemic was just kind of
Good time.
good time in heavy quotes. But so they obviously Nintendo didn't know that, but they were willing to miss the holiday period to make a better game in the spring. And yeah, it kind of sounds like Ubisoft are doing something similar here. Hopefully, we won't have another 2020 to go along.
No,
with,
yeah,
but,
just hopefully it's not an omen. But yeah, I mean, I guess like obviously investors will be annoyed, but if ultimately it helps the game, that'll make better sales, and then maybe things will all be better come next year. But yeah, really struggling. And then to top it all off, there's the news today that workers at their French studio is going to go on strike because of the returning to office 3 days a week, and they're encouraging their international colleagues to take part. I don't know how feasible that would be. Obviously, with rules in different countries, yeah, it's all kicking off there, and none of this is to mention their mobile stuff. And I think the fact that we don't all this stuff going wrong with Ubisoft, we don't talk about mobile. I think it's kind of telling in the sense that, and this isn't to knock their mobile studios. Like Calibri is a really good developer, but it's just like there's no seemingly meaningful strategy for their mobile division, and it's not a meaningful impact compared to their console PC business. And it doesn't seem to fit into their big strategy to focus on, they say they're going to focus on open world adventures and games as a service native experiences. And unless you're really counting the live ops for like Calibri's cool, like idle games, it just doesn't seem to mesh. Yeah, Ubisoft, crazy. And actually, just to cap it off, I think it was weird, like from, I'd say 5 years ago, just as a random time ago, that Ubisoft actually seemed pretty well positioned to and even if you looked in hindsight, they could have like really adapted well to any industry changes. They had like already had great IP, which now like EA is just redoubling their efforts on, even though they already did a good job of that. And then they had like the Division and Rainbow Six Siege, which were amazing games as a service titles, really. And then those franchises are kind of not doing as great as they were. Yeah, it's just hard to put your finger on what really went wrong. Or maybe they just focused on the wrong games. They shouldn't have made Avatar and Star Wars. They could have just focused on their own hit franchises. So I think that's probably enough Ubisoft before it becomes the Ubisoft show. But obviously, good luck to the staff there. Some other news: Dungeon Fighter Mobile has surpassed $800 million in 4 months. That's according to App Magic, and that's gross revenue. So they show net revenue of the platform, and we had the 30% for apps. For in this case, for the App Store, it's only those estimates are only China's App Store, and so the actual revenue that game's made is who knows, like 2-3 times that maybe in China, if you count third party Android stores. So it's unbelievable how that's doing. Although you did note, I think you had a chart that shows like that the revenue's slowing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's still making absurd amounts of money.
Yeah.
So I also looked at, I compared it with Squad Busters, which obviously has been pretty successful over here. Not maybe like Clash of Clans level, but it's one of this year's fellow like big games. And yeah, I think Squad Busters' best performing day, it made as much as Dungeon and Fighter's worst day. To put it in a bit of perspective.
I mean, Squad Busters is like. I mean, this is on another level though. Really, Squad Busters is not at the moment, with respect to the team, it's not what you'd think would be a Supercell level game in terms of revenue at the moment. Whereas Dungeon Fighter is just clearly the biggest new game of the year. When did Last War come out? Was that last year? Might get away with that. Elsewhere in the news, Fun Plus doubles down on licensed IP as it soft launches Foundation, Galactic Frontier, and DC Dark Legion. So Fun Plus has they do like Guns of Glory as State of Survival is their kind of big games. They have worked closely with IPs. They did like the Joker in State of Survival partnership. But to my surprise, unless someone's going to correct me, but they never actually released a licensed game before. I don't know why. I just assumed that they had, because I think they actually put like the Joker name in State of Survival, but it doesn't count. But now they have two in soft launch, set, and they both look set for a global release. So interesting decision to do that. I guess perhaps maybe it's just classic licensing strategy. Works with the kind of the titles that they've made, and they've added the IP on top, or they've kind of looked at post ATT, or we need a license to get noticed. The one that I'm most curious about is Foundation. If that really has a big enough audience, the TV show is fantastic. Obviously based on the books, Isaac Asimov. But yeah, the TV show is fantastic. It's probably one of Apple TV's like best shows. They do have some bangers on there. Yeah, but it's not like a Star Wars or Star Trek, right? So curious how that does. And then I'll rattle through some of these other ones. So we did one this week. So we update the soft launch every week, and some of these come from that. So after $1 billion in player spending, hybrid casual specialist Habby soft launches text-based idle RPG Capybara Go. So Habby kind of kicked off the whole hybrid casual thing with Archero, and then Survivor.io was an even bigger success. And they actually make obviously a lot of money, their money through ads. So that 1 billion plus is nearly 1.2 billion gross player spending. Loads more on top of that in ad revenue that we don't account for. But yeah, their next game looks kind of cool. Definitely check that out. It's described as a text-based roguelike adventure RPG starring a capybara. It's available on the App Store, Google Play in Australia, Canada, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. So if you're based in any of those or can get an account, worth taking a look, because I think when Happy is like one of those companies that don't always have a hit, but when they've got a new title, it's worth checking out.
And I think any game with Go in the name,
yeah, well, our resident, for starters, our resident Pokemon Go fan, but then obviously a certain other Go game that did fairly well. I'll reel off investments because I've been talking a lot. GameBeast has raised $3.7 million for and that's a Roblox tool platform. Vivid Games has secured $1.36 million investment to grow the Real Boxing brand. So they actually had Real Boxing. Is it Real Boxing? I have to check. Real Boxing. And they actually had the third one in soft launch, but it was pulled. So maybe it was a test. I'm not sure what's going on there, but it sounds like that game's still alive, which is good. Nitro Games has expanded its partnership with Digital Extremes for Warframe Mobile. They've got a new €5 million deal. And then lastly, some sad news that indie publisher Merge Game is closing down after 15 years. They've worked on games like Dead Cells and Darkest Dungeon. And I think that came around after they did layoffs not that long ago and closed an office, I think just a few weeks ago. So that's really sad news, and good luck to all the people there. I've been talking loads, so Aaron, please rectify the situation.
Right. So our other news this week. So AFK Journey has surpassed 150 million in gross revenue. That's also by AppMagic estimates. So by September 21st, it had made 158.3 million gross, and that was 6 days before its half-year anniversary. So it first released in the West on the 27th of March this year. Of course, AFK Journey is a sequel to AFK Arena, which is Lilith Games' idle game, which made huge waves in China. So that game's earned over 1.5 billion to date. So kind of by comparison, AFK Journey has got off to a relatively modest start, considering it was initially just out in the West. I think a lot of people were waiting to see how it would do after the Asian release, which was in August, I believe. And basically since then, the revenues really surged. So it's It was at 71 million before it released in like China and Japan and other Asian markets, and so it's more than doubled from there in like 6 weeks to the 158 million. And Chinese players already account for about 22% of lifetime revenue, even though they've only had it for like 6 weeks. So China's already the second biggest like contributor revenue-wise behind the US, and then South Korea, Taiwan, and Japan round out the top five. So yeah, it's clearly the Asian market is where it wants to be.
I think with AFK Arena, I think that actually started as a global outside of China launch, did extremely
Right.
well, and then released later in China, if I remember correctly. The interesting thing here in the chart that you've done, so using that magic data, is you can obviously see like the initial launch spike when it launched earlier this year,
Mm.
and then revenue kind of declined each month after that, and then August 2024, like you said, massive surge, and actually, it's partial month, isn't it? Because the revenue currently was, I was about to say, is below April. I guess naturally we still got a few days
Yeah.
left.
Yeah. Obviously, it's not. I mean, I doubt in the next few days it'll kind of more than double back to August
Yeah,
numbers. But yeah, so it
it'd have to
probably
go
has
up
gone
by
down.
3x or something,
Yeah.
or 2.5.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's clearly launching in Asia was a good idea. So yeah, then moving on. So Tales of the Shire, which is an upcoming Lord of the Rings game, is going to be releasing on mobile as well as other platforms, but only for those with a Netflix subscription on mobile. So I've been seeing this one promoted for a while as a console game, and initially saw it in a Switch presentation. So it's cool to see it will be coming to mobile as well, albeit in a kind of exclusive way. But I guess that's quite a win for Netflix to be able to offer its users, like this full kind of console game, but for free on mobile when it comes out next year, I believe. And it's being developed by Weta Workshop and Take-Two subsidiary private division. So Weta Workshop worked on the Peter Jackson trilogies, Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. And it looks like they've captured the kind of Shire aesthetic pretty well. And I think the fact they're involved in those films, which I mean, I like all six of them. Blasphemous as that may be, the Hobbit films are actually pretty good.
They are the worst films. They're just so bad. The first one, I think I watched it like a few different sittings. It was just so boring and
Oh,
so stretched out. There's a whole scene with Saruman in it that's it's just so unnecessary.
well, if you grew up on it, Craig, you might look at it differently. You were,
That's true. That's true. I
but,
guess, yeah. But I grew up on the Star Wars prequels, and actually, as a kid, I think I liked them. If I watch them again, they're terrible.
yeah. To be fair, like two, what is it, Attack of the Clones? That used to be my favourite, and then I
Same.
rewatched it a few years ago, and it was like, actually, this is.
I'm glad there's someone else. I felt mortified. I was just like, why does Attack of the Clones get such a bad like
Yeah.
rap? I thought it was pretty good, and you watch it again, you're like, oh, this is the worst one.
Anyway, yeah. So with this Lord of the Rings game, so obviously it's a big IP for Netflix to kind of be involved with. It sort of fits their. It's a funny one because it kind of fits their strategy. A lot of their mobile games they've kind of been building on the shows that they have and then kind of releasing games in them. But obviously here they don't have a Netflix. They don't have a Lord of the Rings show, but Amazon do at the minute. So that's a bit of just a funny one. Obviously Netflix aren't really involved in making this game as far as I know, particularly because it's launching on consoles as well. But yeah, just a funny thing that inadvertently it might promote people to go and watch Rings of Power.
It's all right.
Yeah. Hobbit's way better.
The ignoring that, the I'm still like, if I let's talk about like Netflix in general. I'm still not really sure what is it they're going for. I feel like they're still in between eras
Mm.
of what they were doing before. Now they brought in a new president for games. Like, what is their strategy? What's their direction? Do they currently have one? Who actually runs that strategy? Is it the co-CEOs of Netflix, or is it actually the guy they've brought in to do it, and the other executive team that they've got there? And what is it they're going for? Are they trying to go for everything? Are they go for licenses? Because it's actually a bit weird that they would just get this game at all.
Mm.
I guess it's recognizable, but it isn't one of their IPs. But then when
Yeah.
they do their own IPs, Super Evil Megacore is a fantastic developer, and I'm sure they're going to make an absolutely amazing game. But the Rebel Moon IP, I mean, the Rebel Moon films they're worse than the Hobbit films. I'll say, like they are. I actually I only watched the first. I can't bring myself to watch the second one, and I'm a sucker for these things. I could easily watch anything that's sci-fi, and the first one was so awful that yeah, I don't know. And then obviously they're doing interactive fiction stuff with Netflix stories. I just
Mm.
like, what is it they want?
Yeah, it kind of seems like they're just kind of throwing everything at the wall and
It is
seeing what
right.
sticks.
I guess they're. I don't know what I'm talking about when I say this, but I guess like their TV film strategy. I guess they go after lots of different niche audiences,
Mm.
um, as well as the stuff that really hits home with kind of everyone, and that works. But they're just not really doing that with games at the moment. We'll
Mm.
see how that looks in a year's time, I guess.
Yeah. So moving on, we've got Duolingo is introducing AI-powered games called Adventures. So it's Duolingo's a language learning platform, which is already quite gamified to like help kind of encourage people to practice new languages. But with this new Adventures mode, they're going to be giving users like storylines to go through and apparently make like a full Duolingo universe with all different characters to meet and I guess interact with in different languages. So the goal is to provide gamified but realistic scenarios. So that could be like ordering drinks at a cafe or getting a passport check. But yeah, I guess it'll be in kind of a gamey context with whether you'll have an avatar. I don't know at the minute, but yeah, I guess it makes sense. Obviously, AI is a big topic of the past few years. Maybe not the best look because they had some contentious cutbacks last year. It was about 10% of their contractors they parted ways with in favour of getting like AI to translate between languages instead of paying people to do it. Which, yeah, so I guess that wasn't a great look, and now they're using AI even more for within kind of this game mode, which obviously everyone is using AI these days. I guess it's a tricky balance between making the most of the tech without kind of adding too much to all the joblessness going on these days.
Yeah, I don't. It just sucks
Mm.
for people. But ultimately, I mean, there's a massive debate here we could have about how good some of these generative AI tools are, and how legal that they'll ultimately
Mm.
be to use. But it's obviously already having, as they've openly admitted, it's just already having a big impact on these companies and on jobs. That you can just automate more things than you could before, and they'll continue to do that. A lot of things have always been automated. It's just the scale of some of these new products.
And then, so last one from me, bit of well, in a way, a more positive note. But Genshin Impact has reached its fourth anniversary already. Time's flying by. But so it's made 6.3 billion in those 4 years, according to AppMagic, and recently launched its version 5.0 update, which has introduced a new land called Natlan, which is very like fire themed. So I believe that's going to be kind of the basis for most of the new updates for the next year until the fifth anniversary, where a lot of the kind of new game content is going to be set. It's got its own like lore and new characters, and basically is to keep people interested for another year. Here's a load of new stuff. So obviously huge game. Hoyoverse has done really well with it. 6.3 billion is a lot. It's also the fastest game to ever reach 5 billion. But this past year has been Genshin's worst year yet on mobile. It's the first time that it's made less than 1 billion in a year. I think in its first year it made about 2 billion. And this year it was like 900 million and something, which obviously still huge.
Just a total failure.
Yeah. They should call it a day now, I think. That's clearly.
Time to shut down the servers.
Yeah. But no, it's obviously, it's still a huge game, but there is a marked decline. I'd recommend looking at my feature about the game. There's some graphs in there that I made with the App Magic data, which does really sort of show that it's steadily dropped for a couple of years, and now it's really, I won't say fallen off a cliff, but it has quite dramatically fallen this past year, which, it seems like maybe Hoyo versus other RPGs are kind of taking players' attention. Maybe there's only so much of a market for these kinds of games. Because I also looked at Genshin's most successful updates of the past year, kind of financially. And although there'll obviously be other factors like what was in the update, but all their biggest ones were before Zenless Zone Zero came out, and their revenues dropped even further since that released. So the evidence does kind of point towards they've kind of hit a saturation point with their audience. But even so, obviously, still a huge success.
It's, I guess, worth pointing out that this is just the mobile app store Google Play revenue.
Yes.
So it's available across platforms, and then a bit like the Dungeon Fighter mobile stuff I mentioned earlier, third-party Android stores don't count them either. So it's probably still making, definitely making at least 1 billion. It's probably making multiple billions just from that game. And we've spoken before on the podcast. I won't labour the point, but like the interesting thing about that you were saying there about Honkai Star Rail, Zenless Zero kind of taking that money away. But the interesting part of Hoyoverse, they just managed to keep that player base within them within their games, rather than going to a rival and losing them forever, potentially. Yeah, so that's quite interesting.
Yes, and then there's not much known about their next game yet. It's called like Astroweave Haven, I think. They got like a license approval for it. That's basically all that's known so far. But it seems like that's not going to be so much an RPG. So maybe they're going to try something different. Maybe target a new market. Who knows? Might end up coming over to their kind of RPG trio they've got going on at the minute.
Yeah, a bit like Happy. Just it's another studio that when they've been so successful at doing what they do, that when they announce a game, release one, it's one of those worth kind of taking notice and seeing what they do. And also, if they're trying something new, is it just they've reached, like you said, that saturation point, or they've noticed that actually, this kind of thing, maybe it's as popular anymore. We'll try this instead. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the end of the news, and due to technical difficulties, we're going to wrap things up there. But we're pretty much done, unless people really wanted to hear me rant about Orion AR glasses at better. But another time we'll save that for. But thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Aaron, for taking part and putting up the technical difficulties of Iron.
Yeah, that's all good. I got to hear a bit of the AR glasses rant, even if no one else did. So it's all good.
How lucky are you? It's for the best. Even Virgin Media, my internet provider, were like, no, actually, we don't want to hear that.
Take him down.
Yeah. It's just like, no, absolutely not. Just a little bit. It was really bad weather today, and a little bit of rain in the UK, and everything falls apart, even though it rains all the time. So, thank you everyone very much for listening. We'll be back again next week. I'll be recording live from Finland because I'll be at Pocket Gamer Connect's Helsinki and Finnish Games Week. Have a great weekend. Hopefully, I'll see you at the show. But if not, I'll see you very soon. Thanks again, everyone. Goodbye.
See you.